This week, I want to talk about the announcement from Adobe around Flash and the retirement and the lack of support from the end of 2020 for Flash. That's right, guys. Unless you've been hiding under a rock for the last week, it's hit all of the major news outlets that Adobe has finally formally released the fact that they will no longer support Flash from the end of 2020. And on their website, they're actually suggesting and advising that content creators, people like you and I, look to other more open standards in terms of content creation. Now, the truth is that with the advent of HTML5 and other more open standards, that Flash was always on a kind of limited time frame that it was going to still remain around. And add to that Flash itself and the player requires the user to install something is kind of going against lots of security policies. And that being said, that Flash has been breached a couple of times over the last couple of years. It's because it's aging technology. It's been around for, I think, around about 20 years. So they have now finally formally released the fact that we are no longer going to be supporting Flash from the end of 2020. Now, what does that mean? I know that a lot of vendors have already kind of saw the writing on the wall a couple of years ago, and certainly in the markets that we move in, they have been looking at implementing HTML5 within their particular product suite. So a lot of the clever vendors have already started moving away from reliance on Flash and the ability or the need to have plugins installed on local machines to have content execute within a browser or a viewing environment. Now, there are still products out there that rely on Flash. We rebuilt this PC only yesterday and installed some new software, inverted commas new software, and it asked us to download and install Flash. So there are lots of product manufacturers out there that are going to have to rethink their product strategy around how they're going to display content and how they're going to make content available to their end users. So that means a lot of us that have content that relies on Flash and interactive content that requires a Flash player, we need to start thinking about how we're going to migrate that content now to a more open standard. Now, people out there will help you do that. There's lots of conversion companies that will help you do that, but there will be lots of rework involved, especially if you're deeply reliant on something like Flash. So we have already, a couple of years ago, started migrating all our video content away from using Flash, and it now works in a HTML5 player. So we could kind of see this was already writing on the wall for Flash. And if you have content that relies on this technology, 2 years is not a very long time, 2.5 years. Now, that doesn't mean overnight your software is going to stop working. It doesn't mean that your content's no longer going to be valid or work. It just means if you have problems, it will no longer be supported in very much the same way that a couple of years ago, Microsoft stopped supporting XP and some of the older versions of Microsoft Windows. It doesn't mean it stops overnight. We've got an old XP machine that we still have to fire up every now and then. It will still work. It just means that if we have a problem with it, there's no support on the Microsoft website and there's no ability to go to them and ask for help. That is going to be the same thing that's going to happen with Flash. So the message from this quite serious tutorial this morning, or thought of the day, is if you've got content and you're relying on Flash, you need to think about getting it migrated, or at least have a strategy for migrating it.